Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another video with On Point Politics, your number one stop for all things polling and election analysis that isn't beholden to any mainstream media source. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Jason.
Sure. I'm Jason Corley with Quantus Insights. We've been in the polling industry since July. This is our first cycle into the polling neighborhood here. We primarily been working with forecasting models and some projections, but we got into polling here. Want to test it out, see if we could add something a little different, perhaps, into the industry and make an impact.
So, Jason, we got about a week left, and it's looking really interesting. Only a week left. Kamala Harris is giving a closing argument speech tonight, which is kind of weird because the campaigns never really ever do that. So, kind of interesting. But what is your view of the race as of right now? What is like your modeling showing in terms of the race?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things you could approach that with. If you were to leave out the noise and the Madison Square Garden and Kamala's interviews and all, just leave it out and just simply look at the polls. You got a tight race, and it's a coin flip if you just look at the polls. So there, if the polls are right miraculously this year, then we're headed down to the wire. But if you do introduce some of these things, such as fundamentals, looks like momentum, take in some early voting patterns, look at Trump's increase in the national popular vote, and try to do some estimations on what that looks like in the battleground states, it looks like this is leaning Trump. And if we pivot to my models off that last statement, my models show this race leaning Trump now. It was tilt Trump for a while, but our last update Sunday, we got Trump around 64 to 65% to win the Electoral College, to win the election. The national popular vote flipped in my models. It's Trump he's up about 0.4. That may change with my final projection, because I am going to weight the models and we'll see what happens. But it looks like it's a complete toss up. Trump around 48.5, maybe 49, somewhere in the 48s, maybe 49s, and it looks like Harris is doing as well in my model. She's in the 48s or 49, so it's really a complete toss-up. I'd have to look at it, rerun some things, and then make my final projection based on that.
Right. So looking at some of the polling you've done now, there was a Virginia poll that you came out with that has only Harris +1. I believe it was like 49 to 48 in the state.
Yep.
And the state was a 10-point win for Biden last time around. So that's a pretty big change if that were to actually hold up. So what do you think is going on there? What do you think is kind of driving that, frontier on Trump gaining in Virginia? Because Glenn Youngkin won in 2021. And so it's technically possible to do it. So what do you say about the poll that just came out? What stuff have you been kind of seeing there?
So it's a real simple answer, and it's just Trump is just vastly improved across all demographics. He's doing well in the Shenandoah Valley. If there's turnout in the Shenandoah Valley, there's turnout in the West or the mountain region area. He can outperform my poll. I don't know. I may have hit it right on the head, and it's just going to be just out of reach for Trump. I will say that it looks like he topped out. Where Harris can easily pop 50% in Virginia, easy. Just a few things here and there. She's at 50% or maybe higher. Trump maybe topped out at 47.5 or 48. I think I had him at 47.8 and Harris at 48.9 or 49. So it was like a 1.2, 1.3 race. Secondly, black African-American, black male voters are supporting Trump in the state of Virginia by around 31%. His female
he's leading. He's leading the group, or but he's got 31.
He's got 31% of their.
That's really good though.
Yeah, and the female black voters is around 14%. So he's doubled that as well. So overall, he's got about 21% of the African American support in that state, and I think he's getting 56% of the white vote. The Loudoun County, Northern Virginia area, he looks like he's improved. I don't know. It's hard because you're dealing with sample sizes that may be small in certain areas. You make a judgment call, but he is running a little better than he did. Boy, he's running a lot better. So we'll see. I don't know if it's Youngkin type performance because turnout's going to be key in Virginia. If turnout is low in Virginia for Harris, and there's an enthusiasm gap, he could sneak in and win that state. It's not unquestionable. That's just going off the polls. I will tell you that my models doesn't have Virginia flipping, so I was surprised at the poll. It was a very good sample. I just want to caveat that this is the best sample I've ever gotten for Trump in this cycle. It was a really good sample. It was friendly in terms of Republicans showed up. He was winning the raw vote in that sample more than halfway.
Wow.
Yeah, more than halfway through the sample, he was leading the raw vote. But then it started leveling out that third day, and then we had to do. It turned into more of a Harris-leaning sample, and that's where the poll ended up leaning, or as well was a Harris-leaning result. So.
Right. And you see guys like obviously like Jason's trying to do his best. Like even though he had Trump up in the raw sample, he actually waited and it ended up giving him like a Harris win because like we fund SoCal strategies, you're doing your own stuff. There's a lot of people that are trying to like get in the game and then they kind of like say, oh, well, they're trying to lean too much Trump or oh, they're trying to lean too much Harris. Like, no, guys, like we're trying to follow the best things that we possibly can. And even with my own election forecasting, I back tested it to make sure that it's possible to get a 2020 result. I'm not saying you can back test it and like confirm, hey, this is going to be accurate. All I can say is, hey, you can back test it and actually get the real result or whatever quote unquote real result. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you can actually back test it and get a scenario where you replicate the real world result. Because there's a lot of modeling out there where no matter what you did to it, there was no way you could have gotten a Biden 306, 232 win. It just couldn't happen because of the way that they do it. Yeah. So it's important to do things like that. And really, and I'm going to have you talk about this. Guys, polling is based on science and math, but it's also an art form because you have to be able to comprise your own target weights. And that in itself is an art form. So I kind of want you to really hit on that. Like, why do you think, like, how do you view polling and like, why do you think it could be considered an art form?
I mean, well, just like you hit on, it starts with your homework and your preparation. Mm-hmm. I always run regression analysis on the states that I'm going to poll based on past and new information, using some of the Gallup party affiliation updates, and looking what the target proportions should look like in terms of what your most likely electorate is. Of course, you can benchmark using other polls. What are other polls seeing? And you don't go off one or two. You try to get a mix of everyone and just see what they're looking at, see what the trend looks like. Ingest that data, run regression analysis, find your acceptable ranges, and then throw your hat in the ring and pull in a sample and see what it looks like, see how well it adjusts. I will tell you that sometimes even good weighting doesn't necessarily change that much of a sample.
No, it shouldn't be changing it that much. If you stratified it, right, it depends on what sample you got. But if you stratified properly, then your weighting efficiency, I believe, shouldn't be anything above like a 2, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, but you will, like, especially with your online polling, you're going to get a miss in terms of rural voters or certain age demographics. So you hope to use voter files. You try to bring in other things. MIT's got a wonderful tool out there where it helps you with the demographics and the local voting trends and things of that nature. And you can kind of see what you've missed. You can see this missing gap of voters, especially when you do some more of your sensitivity. I do sensitivity testing, sensitivity analysis on some things as well. That kind of helps me squeeze out what I'm missing.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, there's so many ways to skin the cat, really, in this game. And you're right, it is. I guess you could call it an art form. Some people would call it subjective. I don't know, but you can pretty much tell if your raw sample represents the real world. If more than half your samples from Detroit, well, you're going to have a skewed result. So quotas are good. Setting quotas, oversampling certain regions or oversampling certain demographics, so you can get that representation and hopefully get your raw data close to reality.
Right. And that's like something that Rich does. He goes ahead and he, even for his national poll now, he oversampled non-whites So when he weights it, he actually has like a proper sample. He has a bigger sample, but when he weights it down, it can still be sort of representative because he got a good enough sample. And he said that that probably is one of the largest samples that anybody's ever had for a national poll for Hispanic and Black voters. And he's got pretty good numbers for Trump in some of those. And he likes to stratify pretty well. But like, for example, even like Arizona, there was a CNN poll that came out today that has Harris up 1, but they have the party ID tied. Even though Arizona's electorate is probably going to be over what it was in 2020, which is going to be similar to like R plus 10. So it's like, how are you going to know that there's an R plus 10 advantage in Arizona in the party electorate, but then just have it tied in your poll and then somehow have Harris narrowly up? It's just like, really?
I'd have to look. I don't know. I don't know what the call is. Maybe that's where the raw sample came in. Maybe they didn't wait off of that. I don't know. I haven't looked at it. I haven't really been on Twitter this whole morning. Because I've been head down in this Michigan poll trying to do some of the post survey analysis. And I'm pretty close to being finished. I got a little bit more work to do. So
Right.
I'm dealing with that as well with the party affiliation. How do you weight? You got to make some calls here, but it looks like it's going to be a pretty even split between Republicans and Democrats, and then to a lesser extent, the independents. So we'll see where we end up on that.
Right. Now, kind of to finish this up, where are you looking? What paths do you see for Trump and Harris? Because I hold the belief that Trump actually has more paths this time than he usually does. Because before, he'd have to run it up in Texas, Florida, Iowa, and Ohio, according to the political pundits. They were toss-ups, and he'd have to win all of those. Then he had to win Georgia, North Carolina, and Arizona, and then pick off one of the blue wall states. But that's not where we're at now. Everyone pretty much knows he's going to win Iowa, Ohio, and Texas, and Florida. So that gives him a little bit of a floor to be like, okay, well, he can just pick up Georgia, North Carolina. And then from there, he can kind of go. So what paths do you see for Trump and Harris in terms of winning the Electoral College?
Well, the easiest path is pretty simple. It's holding what we call holding the old being Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina. If he picks up Nevada, great. That puts him right under 270. All he has to do is flip Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, and it's curtains after that. That's his easiest path. Let's say Nevada somehow miraculously, it's a election day turnout for Democrats, or things change between now and then. That sets him back a little bit, but he still can pick up Pennsylvania. He can still pick up Wisconsin and he'll get a smaller 272, I think.
Yeah.
If he picks up Wisconsin, but it looks like he's got a better than even chance to hold Nevada, or pick up Nevada, especially if this early vote patterns continue, and then election day is Republican. I posted something last night about the remaining votes. I retweeted G. Morris Elliott, and I put a little more thought into what he was trying to get at and explain that the advantage of these outstanding votes are Republican leaning without a doubt in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Nevada.
Right.
And if you're running neck and neck in early voting, or you're ahead in early voting, and you have the election day advantage.
It's like you can't really. It's like, and then it's so funny because now the Democrats are like, well, we're actually going to come on election day now, but that's not showing up in the polling data. And not only that, the polling data now is overestimating them in the early and mail-in vote.
Yeah, we'll see if this has been a collapse of enthusiasm. These are the types of things you should start picking up on by now. And it does look like there's going to be maybe a gap in some enthusiasm. I'm sure Harris will do just fine in certain states. She may even have a surprise. I don't know. I don't know. It's definitely not in the bag. This isn't inevitable, I don't think. But if I'm putting money on this, and my combined models show Trump is over 60% chance to win the election. I have 312 electoral college votes for Trump, because that's based on Modus Battleground.
And that's what I think is.
But I don't know. He may, Michigan may be stubborn, and then, the rule is if the trifecta, they go together, and maybe that's a good rule. I don't know. But it does seem to me, though, when he does win one, he tends to win them all in all of my simulations. It's just a matter of margins.
Right.
So we'll see. The higher margins, in Pennsylvania or Wisconsin definitely plays a part in Michigan. And then if a higher Michigan margin or a higher Nevada margin, those two states tend to be in line. When you do a constellation metrics and you look at how states behave according to their delta and according to their margins, it kind of fits together, and it looks pretty simple that it's likely a 312 event. That happens more is what I'm getting. I'll just make a quick point.
Right, yeah, that's the most frequent result that you get.
Versus just him winning Pennsylvania and he loses everything else. That doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. I'm not saying it won't happen. It's just on my simulations, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's not very likely. I mean, I don't think that because here's the thing, this whole Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia thing for the campaign is effective because that gets them the 270. But the good news for them is that if he's getting all three of them, he's probably winning Wisconsin and Michigan too.
Yeah. So
right. That's technically my current plan for election night. If I were to call the states, if we call Pennsylvania first or Michigan first for Trump somehow, then I'm calling all three Rust Belt states because they voted all together since 1992. I don't really see why they would break apart this time, at least. Maybe next cycle, Michigan seems like the one that would be the most stubborn in a future cycle, especially if Trump's not going to be on the ballot. But because of that, I think Michigan may be like the stubborn one where if it's like really close, maybe that one hedges off Democrat while the other two vote Republican. So that's kind of like what I'm seeing right now, at least. But yeah, I do think 312 is the most likely scenario. Even though I don't have 312, I have a little bit more of a bullish result on him based on my modeling. Right. Based on my modeling. But I do think that if I were to say like what can you guarantee, I think 312 right now would be like right on the money right now. Yep. I think he's going to get all the swing states. I think he's going to win Nevada. I mean, you have John Fetterman running around saying that Harris is going to lose Pennsylvania. Like and then Gretchen Whitmer doesn't want to do anything with Harris. It's like, I don't understand why they thought submitting somebody in like this was a good idea, because now all these people that are governors in the deep blue state or the blue states, which happen to be swing states, there's a lot of Democrat governors, but a lot of them don't want Harris to win because they want to run later on.
That's exactly right. Some of this, there's a lot of inside baseball going on. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
And then, she's a vulnerable candidate. That's just it. She's vulnerable.
She wasn't elected. She wasn't democratically elected.
I mean, regardless if you're biased or regardless if you're pro, whatever, that has nothing to do with it. I'm just simply saying, if you grade the two, one's better at this than the other, and it's as simple as that. And
one of them is definitely far better than the other. It's not even close. Like it's not even close. One of them is objectively better at running a campaign than the other. I mean, for crying out loud, Harris just bought a Fortnite map. They literally paid Fortnite, the video game. They paid them to make them a level in the game to promote the campaign. Yesterday. Like that's how, if that doesn't smell desperate to you, then I don't know what does.
Well,
but yeah, I think that 312 is the most likely result right now. It could be Minnesota flips, maybe New Mexico, maybe flips. That's kind of what I'm seeing, but I'm starting to kind of question those. I'm not exactly sure. But all right, guys, this is it for this interview with Quantus Insights. Any last words?
Yeah, no. Yeah. Finish up real quick though with going back to the Virginia poll, going to this New Hampshire polls, if you don't mind. So supposedly there's news items coming down that Harris is pulling out of North Carolina, pulling out of Nevada, and she's sending resources.
She's pulling out of Nevada too.
She's sending resources to Virginia. She's defending Virginia. Supposedly that's the deal. New Hampshire, she's scrambling New Mexico. I don't know if this map is expanding, so I just wanted to add that because your map is a little bullish. You may have some telltale signs that there's some concern about Minnesota, New Mexico, and Virginia and New Hampshire, because
she's going to New Mexico too.
You can go check it out. I don't know. I can't confirm this. This is just some pieces from Axios and other sources.
Right, because I have seen that. I did see that she's pulling out stuff from North Carolina into Virginia, which is really bad.
So,
because actually, that's kind of funny, because what that tells me is that the people there are believing that the other people that Virginia is going to flip first. Because I actually think out of all the deep blue states like that, I think Virginia goes last. I think that would probably be the last one to go. But it seems like they don't really got the best people analyzing them, because if they're trying to defend Virginia, that's like the least of their problems.
Yep.
Minnesota, New Mexico, New Hampshire objectively are far in way worse shape if they're trying to defend Virginia.
Well, I mean, just a little tidbit
right.
too of history. Every time an incumbent loses or an incumbent party candidate loses, the winner always brings an additional state to the White House. He always flips another state. So that could be Nevada. It seems to be the consensus pick here. And then when you have swing elections, and a swing election, 3 to 5 points, we're sitting around 4 points. So it has all the makings for what we call a swing election. And if that's the case, then you would expect some peripheral states, perhaps it's New Hampshire, perhaps it's Minnesota, perhaps it's Virginia. I don't know. But that's when things swing election.
Yeah,
swing states, unless there's a swing election. If there's a status quo or the changing of the guard or change of management, the swing states won't swing. They'll stay relatively where they're supposed to. But during a swing election, you get swing.
When the popular vote is changing like this much, it's like, yeah, that's the problem. Because in reality, the baseline for the election that people should be using is really like 2016 more than 2020, because the reason why Biden won the popular vote by so much is because he got those extra first-time voters that were like in these tech, suburban growing parts of the country that kind of just all threw their mail-in ballots at him. That's what happened. But those people are not voting right now. Like even in Mark's polling in Virginia, he has like a Harris +2. And literally the people that said, I'm not going to vote, probably not going to vote, it's like 71% Harris to 5 Trump. Like it's literally the overwhelming majority of them are those Biden 2020 voters that voted by mail or voted early in person. Yeah, it's really bad for them. And it's, the baseline for the election, this is something Robert Barnes has said, really 2016 is a better baseline for this one than even 2020, because the turnout's going to be higher than 2016, but it's definitely not going to be as high as 2020. And a lot of the people are missing are those like first time Biden 2020 voters. And really this time around, the first time Trump voter is going to be, the first time voters are Trump voters now, because they're mad at the incumbent administration. And the big problem is Biden had a 52% approval rating in 2020. Now, according to Gallup, he's at 39. That's like a ridiculous difference. Yes. I don't think people realize.
Biden had high favorabilities. He had he had the Obama legacy, where things will be okay. We'll be normal again. Well, that turned out that was quick buyer's remorse. That didn't last 8 months. And then,
not even by like 2021 in like June, people were already like Trump was already looking at some like analysis and some very early polling in like 2021 in June. Trump probably would have eked out a win against Biden already.
Yep.
Like it was that bad.
Yep.
But all right, guys, that's pretty much it for this. If you guys did enjoy, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe. Thanks, Jason, for coming on to the show. Greatly appreciate it. Any last words before we finish up?
You can find us on Twitter, though, Quantus Insights, at Quantus Insights on Twitter. Follow our Substack. Our website's quantusinsights.org. We're constantly putting out content, trying to stay up as best we can while we're not polling. So there's a lot of things we're going to be adding here in the next few days. We're going to do a national poll at the end of this week. We'll have it released before the election. So it'll be our one last national poll. Nice. We're going to have Michigan coming out soon, maybe today, first thing in the morning. I got to get it finished, and then we're going to roll into another state if we got time. So,
all right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. And guys, make sure to follow the X in the description down below at onpointpolitics, and we'll see you guys very soon.